Very optimistic. Right, let's return to those rail strikes now. We can talk to Mick Lynch, General Secretary of the Rail, Maritime and Transport Workers Union. Very good morning to you. So bring us up to date of where you're at with your negotiations, what you've been offered so far.
Well, on the train operating companies, we haven't been offered anything. They've just set out the changes they want to make to members' terms and conditions and their working practices, which are very challenging, but they haven't made any serious proposal on pay. And they haven't given us a guarantee of no compulsory redundancies. On Network Rail, we've had more fuller discussions, if you like, and we have got a guarantee of no compulsory redundancies. We're talking to them about the changes they want to make to working practices and all of that stuff, modernisation as they call it. But the pay proposals they've made are completely underwhelming. They're nowhere near inflation. They're nowhere near the value of the productivity they're seeking from us. And it constitutes a possible, and I say possible, 8% over a 3-year period. And as inflation, the RPI index at the moment is 11.7. That's a long way short of where our members need to be in terms of the cost of living and catching up with prices in this country at the moment.
8%, it's a lot more than many people will be getting this year. What's acceptable to you then?
Well, we've got to address the cost of living crisis. This is a 3-year deal that they're putting forward. And in that period, it's likely that inflation might be 20% cumulatively. So we don't know that. We haven't put a specific number on, but we just know that the number that we've offered.
You must know where your red line is. What are you willing to accept?
Well, I'll discuss that with the employer rather than with the BBC, because there's a whole package of measures, and it depends what they want to put into that package that makes up the full value of it. But at the moment, it's undervalued compared to where inflation is. But there's all sorts of measures where inflation is going to be next year and where it was last year when this deal should have been struck.
What's the average salary of one of your striking workers?
Well, the median salary in our members that are out on strike is about £31,000, according to our figures. Many of our members in this dispute are on very modest salaries, some as low as 18,000. Some people are on 25, some people are on 30 plus. It depends what grade they are, what the hours they do, what their shift patterns are, where they live, who they work for. So it's a very difficult answer, but they're very modest salaries for 24/7 shift work.
Right, and 31,000, that's around the average salary for a UK worker, isn't it? So if you're talking about an 8% plus pay rise, that is significant, as I say, will be a lot more than most people are thinking or possibly getting over the next 1, 2, 3 years. What makes it justifiable for your workers?
Well, it's justifiable for all workers. All workers should be getting a pay rise, including BBC employees, and they're not getting one. And that's why people are getting poor while they're doing full-time work, while they're working overtime. Our members, while they're doing full-time work, while they're working overtime. Our members and many other workers in this country are having to use food banks and take state benefits while they're working full-time jobs. That's not acceptable. If you don't get a pay rise that matches the rate of inflation, you're getting poorer year on year. And that's been happening to many public sector workers for the last 12 years. So I want a pay rise for everyone in this country and in this economy. And what's happening is that the rich are getting richer, profits are being maintained and even accelerating, while workers are getting poorer, and that cannot continue. We need a rebalance of wealth in this society, and that's what we're campaigning for. And we're part of a whole movement, I believe, that's going to be campaigning for that. And that means that all workers need to keep up with where prices are going. And we're going to campaign for that until we get a solution to it.
So you've made new dates, announced new dates for more strikes. The chief exec of Network Rail has said in response, this isn't about reaching a deal. The best interests of passengers and staff are taking second place to the union boss's political campaigning. He means you, doesn't he?
Well, I've no idea what he's talking about. He could ring me up, Andrew Haynes, if he wanted to, and talk about my political views. I'm not running a political campaign. My union is not affiliated to a political party, and I'm not a member of any political party. My interest is serving the interests of our members and working class people in general. This is a dispute about jobs, job security. It's about the conditions of service that our members work under. And it's about the low pay that we've had to endure over the past 2 or 3 years. If we can get a solution to that, I'll leave the politics to the ballot box. We are not running a political campaign.
The Rail Delivery Group says that this will upset passengers' summer plans, undermine struggling businesses and upend the industry's recovery. Does any of that come into play when you choose your dates, when you make new announcements of new strikes?
Well, the Rail Delivery Group represents the companies that have made £500 million profit in this industry last year on public subsidy. So they've got an interest in trying to make the RMT as demons. We don't want to upset anyone. We want all working people to enjoy their work and their leisure.
You say you don't want to upset anyone. I'm just interested.
Finish the point before you interrupt.
Well, I'm just interested, Mick.
Well, you just asked me a question. I'd like to finish the point.
I did hear your point. You did say you didn't want to upset anyone.
Well, you didn't hear my point because I didn't finish it.
Okay, carry on.
So we want the people to have a settlement. We want the people to enjoy their leisure. And if we can get a negotiated agreement from the companies and the grant chaps will allow them to negotiate freely, we can get that without any more industrial action.
When you say you don't want to upset anyone, how do you decide the dates of your strikes? Because one of them is the day before the Commonwealth Games starts, which will disrupt a lot of people trying to get there, won't it? Why have you chosen that date?
Well, the legislation in this country, the anti-trade union laws, mean that we have to give 14 days notice. We received a letter on Wednesday morning from the train operating companies with no offer in it whatsoever, no money. That's 3 years drop. We have to give 14 days notice, and the only day that we could fit that in before the Commonwealth Games is Wednesday the 27th. So we're not taking any action during the Commonwealth Games, but Grant Shapps and the Department for Employment have dictated that we must give 14 days notice. And that's the only possible date before those Commonwealth Games.
Mick Lynch, thanks very much for joining us today.